It's probably a scary word for many of us, auditioning. It's your chance to show up and be judged. Um, most of the time, there could be 80 or 100 of you playing all the same stuff, kind of rubbing shoulders with each other and hoping just to find success with one spot coming out of it. I think one of the most important overall changes we can make with regard to finding success in the audition process is that of our mindset. And as soon as we stop thinking of auditioning as some stressful event that happens every once in a while, we have to do it. Auditioning is a very important part of the arts industry. And the idea of showing up and having to be your best self for a few minutes is not unique to music. And I think it's important that we start to think of auditioning as an opportunity. It's an opportunity in many cases for us to really focus on specific pieces of music, kinds of ideas or skills, generally that interest us because we're auditioning for opportunities about which we feel connected to, we're excited about them. But your audition is an opportunity for you to be the very best you've ever been at these few pieces or few skills. It's also a chance for you to share your talents with an audience. And just a chance to make music, in some cases with other folks. If you audition for jazz programs, you probably got in your audition to play along with college students or even professionals who are playing in your auditions with you. And that in itself can just be such an exciting experience. Well, there are a few nuts and bolts too that can help us be successful in auditions. And I think we can break it down into these three kind of subcategories: choosing what we're going to play, preparing effectively, and then actually showing up, which is usually the result of our preparation. And so showing up, I say, with well-earned confidence, in that the showing up part is not really its own skill, but it's a consequence of what we've already done. In many cases, many of these schools do give you some flexibility. You might have to learn one Bach prelude, but there's a whole bunch of them you can choose from. Maybe one jazz ballad, but there are a few to choose from. In almost any audition you'll take, you have some degree of choice. And when that's the case, I think it's important that you choose your repertoire mindfully. There's never going to be a steadfast answer for what the right thing to play for an audition is, because it depends on what kind of audition you're taking. What I mean is that if I'm auditioning as a clarinet player to solo with an orchestra somewhere, and I'm the only clarinet player auditioning against a bunch of flute players and violin players, I cannot play a piece that's so easy. I can play it well, but so easy that it doesn't compete against more virtuosic pieces on other instruments. But if you're auditioning for a school and you know you're auditioning on the saxophone against other saxophone players for the same studio, we would choose our rep differently. I think it's important to be playing things that you're comfortable with, you can play confidently, and that can be representative of your overall playing. If we think about what an audition is, it's both a chance for a school to get to know you, but it's a chance for you to audition the school, to get to know your teacher. And in many cases, college auditions are unique in that teachers make it an opportunity to practice teaching you, to see how flexible you are, to identify your strengths. And if you're lucky, during your audition, you'll be getting feedback and the chance to make changes in real time. If you see that happening, it's a sign that that's a school worth considering more seriously too. Yes. When it comes to preparing, we could talk for hours and hours about all the things you can do to prepare effectively. I think one of the more important things you can do is consider the environment you're going to audition in. So it can start from what kind of acoustic space are you going to be playing in? Are you going to be playing with other individuals? Are they going to be new to you? Is that something you can practice? There are little tricks like to mimic a space you're going to audition in. If you're auditioning in a suit and tie and you've never worn a suit and tie before, you should sit and practice in that same environment. So practice with dress clothes on, practice feeling what it's like to have a tie on while you're trying to play with against the back pressure of a wind instrument. If you know you're going to stand and your dress shoes are uncomfortable, practice with that for a while. But preparing effectively just means being ready for that new environment. And that also means taking the guesswork out of our music. I see Darren has some insight here.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in real quick because this is all great information. And I know it's easy to talk about auditioning for colleges because that's, where we all are. But remember, if you go become a musician, you will be auditioning for things for, a very long time in the professional world, or even in the amateur world, you will be taking auditions. So all of this information helps with all that. Those of you who are undergrads, you'll be auditioning for college someday, or you might audition for All City again next year, whether it's band and orchestra All City or jazz band again. So, it's easy to think about auditioning in one small circle, but auditioning encompasses so much. And skills that you gain from auditioning on an instrument can also be same skills used in job interviews because that is an audition too. So don't be like, well, I don't know, I might not major in music, so this doesn't pertain to me. It does. This is really great. Sean, I just wanted to say thank you. This is like, I just want the kids to think more widely about it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Certainly, these skills are all ones we can plan on using, whether you're preparing, as Darren mentioned, for a music event or something non-musical that's just important to you. An audition serves as just a metaphor for, again, a chance to present your best self. And I think we do that by preparing, being ready, both in terms of how we've practiced and how we've practiced thinking. So if we're talking about how to practice something, music, in some cases, we can think of as a numbers game. And if you continue to reinforce doing something in a way that's uncomfortable, let's say you play something 9 times, comes out poorly, and then you get it right once, you're like, finally, I got it right, I can move on. Well, now there's a 9 out of 10 shot that the next time you try that same thing, it's going to come out feeling uncomfortable again. And so preparation in many cases can just be a numbers game. How much can you shift that balance of me feeling comfortable doing something instead of I've done it more times feeling uncomfortable? And so if we're talking about playing a musical instrument, yeah, I think that means slow down your music, always practice it slowly, always practice it comfortably, and just set rules for yourself. For me, when I'm preparing for a professional audition, I'll start every excerpt, even if I've known it for 10, 20 years, at least half speed of what I want to get something to, and I'll just play it 10 times feeling good in a row before I move on to the next speed. And so this preparation process can take a very long time, but by the end, if I've played something 10 times in a row right, for every one time I've gotten it wrong, well, then there's at least a 9 to 1 shot that the next time I play it, I'll get it right. And the more times you reinforce feeling comfortable, I think the more your chances improve of the next time you do something, you'll continue to feel comfortable. Even if we're talking about the interview portion of an audition, preparing can just mean practicing talking with new people. Maybe that means maybe not in COVID, you're riding an elevator with someone, you just practice making small talk, sitting on a train next to someone, or just approach a teacher, approach some friends and ask if they can bounce some ideas off you and ask you why you're going to music school. A very common question in your audition interview is, what was a crystallizing moment for you? When did you know that you want to pursue music professionally as a career for the rest of your life? And I think it's important that you're thinking about these things and preparing answers, even if it seems like they're obvious questions. Well, in addition to just the mechanical side of preparing, there's also an important mindset side. And I think one of the biggest things you can do is just imagine yourself showing up, being confident, and just nailing everything that you need to nail. And that technique called visualization can really help you kind of feel a little more confident when you show up. If all you do is play something wrong and then sit and visualize yourself going to an audition playing something wrong, I think that also increases the chance that you've seen it already. You know it's going to go wrong. So positive visualization can be really helpful. But then when we actually show up, I think there are a few like little things we can also do. Again, The best way to have a good audition is just prepare. That's all you can do. Once you actually show up to an audition, it's your chance to just play in a manner that's representative of where you are right now. What I mean by that is if you practice the morning of an audition, you're not going to suddenly turn into somebody else. You're not going to gain 3 years of experience. That happens over the next 2 years, over the few months before your audition. But you can take a couple steps to help yourself. Just know yourself. And if you know that drinking an energy drink right before an audition is going to make you jittery, obviously don't drink that energy drink. Some people find little tricks, like a banana might have something that kind of helps your nerves calm down. I try not to drink too much coffee on the morning of an audition because I get a little too excited. At one point I was practicing while I was riding a stationary bike. So I got my heart rate up and I prepared to feel a little nervous and be playing while my heart rate's up because I was a little more out of breath. For me, one of the more helpful tricks I ever picked up in an audition happens right when you walk into a room. And the idea is when you're nervous, some things happen within your nervous system. Your heart rate tends to go up, your breathing rate gets quicker. Sometimes your circulation changes. And when you're young and you haven't done as many high performance, high stress events, you might not be as aware of what these things are going to be. But there's a really great technique called centering, which has been really helpful for me in just combating those effects. I know they're unique to each individual, but in centering, you just take 3 deep breaths. And I do this before every big solo concert or audition I take. Each breath you breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. And the idea is you just take a moment and relax. It gives you time just to remember wherever you are, you're just here to share something about yourself. Share all the time you've put in with your music. But this little physical thing helps combat physical effects. So those of us here, I'd love to try this together. On our first breath, we're going to focus on just breathing in. So we're breathing in and out, in through your nose, out through your mouth. And the first time, nice slow breath, just focus on breathing in. You probably feel a little more relaxed already. On the next breath, only focus on breathing out and try and feel all the tension just rolling off your shoulders. You don't have to make it loud and obvious when you're in an audition setting, but our third breath is where it gets the name centering from. The idea comes from the fact that the center of your body mass is probably somewhere different than you imagine yourself. If you were to think right now about where you exist, where do you really exist? Well, you're probably somewhere between your ears, behind your eyes. That's where you feel like you are, right? If someone pinches your arm, you feel like your arm's an extension of you, but you is kind of up here maybe, aside from some tension that you're holding up here. Well, especially when we're thinking that way in high stress situations, it's really easy to feel like we're kind of crammed in. And a way to feel more connected to the ground is by thinking of the center of our mass, our physical mass, as somewhere around our belly button, maybe a couple inches lower, and right in the middle of us from back to front. That's the center of us. And during this third breath, again, in through your nose, out through your mouth, just think of yourself existing in the center of you and not up here and not up here. So let's take this last breath. Just think about your center. And now both in terms of how we're thinking and kind of biometrically in terms of our heart rate. A few slow breaths will hopefully have gotten us out of the jitters and ready to just give a great performance that we've been practicing for.